If you've not delved into the Farming Crossing 5 mod pack before, you're in for a real treat. I played 100 days of Animal Crossing in Minecraft. I was lured to new lands by this crafty beaver Jess, who somehow convinced me into signing up for the Farming Crossing Getaway package. I'm gonna need to complete tasks and collections to earn my keep, and I've somehow been roped into building a whole village for herself and her 4 other animal friends, who all have their own building preferences. Not only will our hands be full with that project, I've also got to collect and observe all the minerals, flora, fauna, and fish across the world. We have a huge task on our hands, so grab yourselves a drink and a snack, get cozy, and hit that like button for a bit of good luck. And now, we better get into it. Landing in our new world on day 1, I immediately realised I forgot to pay Jess for the bonus chest option, so no starting treasures for me. I didn't care about that though. I was enjoying the fresh air in the rocky meadow when I spotted a crumbling building in the distance. I know for a fact that thing is full of monsters, so I'll be staying away. Where has she sent me? I forgot about that the second I lay my eyes on the map and noticed a ruined nether portal southwest and a big village to the north. Before I fill out my pockets, I checked out the quests in case there were any I could do along the way, and the very first one is to simply collect a log, for which I got a whole backpack? Did they make this quest for me? Farming Crossing is already speaking to my soul, and we've barely begun. Tipping over an entire tree with my bare fist, I had more than enough logs for that, and my first sapling towards the flora collection. You'll see those a bit more in depth later, but for right now, I just want my backpack. My first plant also granted me a bundle and some shears to help me collect and store more plants on our travels. I then made straight for the ruined nether portal for my first dose of chest loot, and the contents were fine at best. I did get my first relic though, a blazing flask. You can apparently use this for a bit of very slow flight in a restricted radius around fire. No use to me whatsoever, and the chest piece with only cursive binding deserves to be left behind. I found a bee and an owl to stare at for the animal watching collection, and you seem to have to get quite close to them for it to count, so in my head, animal watching feels a bit like this. Anyway, enough of that nonsense. My next stop was that village for some real starting goodies. I was immediately met with emeralds and coal, so I had a good feeling about the place. I'll spare you from hearing about every single chest and barrel that I touch from now on, because there were a lot of them, but this infinite ham is a major score. I did have to research its skill first by guessing the constellation pattern under the clouds, though I have had this relic before in other personal playthroughs, so it didn't take me long. I now have a forever regenerating food source, and it's pretty much all I eat for the next 100 days. This village is lucky enough to have a waystone for fast travel. I could have stolen it to use later on for myself, but having lots of waystones to jump around the map in various biomes is going to become extremely valuable, so I left this one here and renamed it Spawnville. Hitting up a blacksmith building, I pilfered a few iron ingots and a couple of diamonds, which was my cue to bother making my first tools. The gold shovels don't count, okay? I also crafted a sleeping bag for when I want to snooze in the wild without changing my respawn point now that the sun was about to set, then collected the various quest rewards for the items I'd been gathering for some fishing gear, a couple of mob capturing tools, more bundles to store all the collectibles, and most importantly in the collection achievement category, my very first miles tickets, a currency arguably far more important than the emeralds. In fact, I don't think I spent a single emerald in this 100 days. I'll explain all of the ways that we can earn and spend these as the days go on, but getting my first ticket won me a pair of running shoes to allow me to truly zoom across the world, and there was a curios container to store my spare artifacts because they don't stack in your inventory. By the time I sorted all my belongings, it was time to drop to the floor for our first night's sleep. I'm playing on hard difficulty, and I'm not ready for a fight right now. We kick off our day 2 with our first fish for the collection, without me having to reel it in myself, just how I like it. Fear not, I will still have to subject myself to fishing later on. After a little longer of filling my backpack, I thought I'd better move on before this becomes 100 days as a pillager, but then I found a mineshaft just outside the village, and I can't turn down an opportunity like that. I followed the ladders, vines, and water down into the depths, on the hunt for ores for the collection and later use, but I was not expecting to happen upon a zombie spawner room. All I had to defend myself with was a little knife I stole from the village, and some gold boots on my feet. The safety of my toes is kind of irrelevant when the undead are bashing my face in. I only managed to fight one of them off before I hit a dead end and got overwhelmed, so off to sleep I went in Spawnsville with nothing but my own obituary in my hand. Thankfully, I'd already lit up the spawner room as I passed it yesterday, but instead of running straight to reclaim my grave, I got distracted by the chest loot. What a surprise. My grave was pretty close by though, and with this particular gravestone mod, you have to break it to receive your belongings. The extra loot complicated things a little, but once I got reorganized, I continued combing this place for treasure. This jellyfish necklace was a fun find. I'd sting anyone who touches me. Could have done with it earlier. And I was thrilled for a split second seeing some iron armor in the next chest till I heard something suspicious and backed the heck up. Seems my brain provided better protection than any armor would have there. I guess that's my cue to return to the surface and search these lands for a place of my own to settle down, with obligatory freebie distractions as and when I pass them. I ended up finding another huge village, and isn't this one pretty? I activated the waystone, but with my backpack slowly approaching capacity, I opted not to even bother looking inside the buildings to focus on picking out a build spot. Me? Intentionally leave loot behind? Trust me, it was necessary. I did struggle to ignore things like crops and plants though. I like plants, okay? I just had to check out this mushroom house on day 5 though. The entrance appeared abandoned, but looking upwards, there's another room in the top with a chest full of fun stuff, and a mossy waystone that I took with me this time. I'm gonna need it for my new home, but venturing back out, I found another one just out in the wild looking lonely, so that's coming with me too. Just across the river from there was an enormous building, and I just couldn't resist its allure. I had to sprint past that huge eyesore to get over there, but let's just not perceive it from here on out. It's not here. Climbing that hill, I had a good feeling about this spot. There was just something about this location that felt like it could be home. I could be happy here, and I think my future villagers could be too. The valuables that were already in the nice big hilltop house were clearly an invitation for me to set up shop here. There was even plenty of equipment to get me started. I belong here, so this house is where I'll be living, so I can focus all my efforts into transforming this floral hilltop into a village for my Animal Crossing style villagers. It took the rest of this day for me to get some initial storage set up and organised. I plopped down a waystone here too, then waking up on day 6, I upgraded my backpack to Iron Tier to double its space, a huge upgrade. Checking out our collection achievements, as you can see, my journey to find a home was very productive, and I had a total of 17 tickets ready to collect. Unfortunately, this isn't enough. You see, Jess the Beaver has gotten back in contact to let me know she's thinking of setting up an office out here so that some of her other friends can join me. She's got some materials ready, but I need to pay 20 miles tickets as a fee to get them delivered, and I need to build the place myself. There are other ways aside from collection achievements to earn more tickets, but I have been enjoying that side of things, so I stepped outside to pick some flowers and pressed my face against some new animals. That's when I noticed we have subcategories for each collection. I just completed the grass animal watching collection. There's 5 animals in this one, so I got 5 tickets. I now have enough to pay Jess. Instant delivery too, I love it. Oh, and stacks go up to 100 here instead of the standard 64. Now, it's not a requirement that I must use these specific materials, however in this 100 days, I'm challenging myself to stick to at least most of the palette they've asked for as much as possible. The houses in Animal Crossing aren't always cohesive either, so this is the kind of vibe I want to reflect in my village. What's great about this mod pack is I don't have much to worry about when it comes to the quantity of materials, because if you combine one of certain materials with one ticket in a crafting table, it duplicates it to give you 50 of that material. The tooltips will tell you whether or not you can duplicate it with a ticket. I got right to work leveling out some of the smaller lumps and bumps in the terrain, and set up the sawmill and architect's cutter out the back of the house to make my life a little bit easier instead of having to run inside. I don't really end up using these very much, mainly the stone cutter on a stick, and the chisel, both of which I can use from the convenience of my inventory. The stone cutter gives us access to a plethora of furniture options and decorative blocks, and the chisel I'll show you later because I became very aware that the sun was about to set. Time is going to pass me by if I'm not careful. I set down some of the blocks to give me a good look at my palette. From this palette I will not be using the snow, it just feels odd to use where it's not cold. I then slept this night away to avoid being ambushed whilst focusing on building, and I'll admit I didn't end up using the prismarine blocks either, but I forgive myself for that because pretty soon you'll see that I'll be using the warped wood for the interiors, so I have still incorporated its colours. Right now, let's focus on the building itself. I used the jungle wood for the walls of the building with its logs for a frame, with the cherry planks being used for the floors, roof, and some other details. I wanted to have a go at building with the macaw's roofs, but at first I didn't notice that my overhangs were upside down, and I just couldn't figure out getting it to look right for the life of me, so I gave up on those and opted for the trusty slabs. Thankfully, you can just use the stone cutter to reconvert the roof pieces to wood again. I do have one regret now when it comes to this build, and that's that the front section was one block narrower than the rest of the build. It made it so that the roof ended up being an even number of blocks wide instead of an odd number of blocks, and there's just something about it that looks a little off. I think it's where the rest of the roof is about half a block taller. I don't hate it, I am still learning. As for the inside, I used some counters to separate what I want as an actual staff office away from the guest zone. I popped down a comfy couch for people to wait on, and added a couple of tables with chairs maybe for things like paperwork right next to the big window overlooking the incredible view. Of course, actually building the windows might help, and now to add some finishing touches. Kind of annoying that some of the windows got broken, and I don't want to remake them, so we're slapping an ugly band-aid on it for now. I did not know at this moment that the band-aid would become permanent. With the building pretty much ready to go, just let me know that the office could do with some computers, but they cost 25 tickets I do not have. So on day 9, I left home aiming for more collection progress. I've not done very much mining, so I'm working on the mineral collection, and conveniently, I have this prisma crystal cave right near my home, except I got distracted by some coal on my way down and changed course to some resource gathering in a different nearby cave. There are still plenty of new blocks and minerals down here to collect anyway, and I'm gonna need at least some of these for building things later. I don't know about you, but I can often get lost, in a good way, when mining or caving. I just don't really feel time passing down here. And I even found some diamonds. It was a really chill time. Well, if it wasn't for the monsters.
The woman was too stunned to speak.
I sprinted off to retrieve my stuff a bit too hastily with just 99 bread and a bucket to fill with water if I need a soft landing. I didn't think about the fact that neither of these objects would make very effective weapons, in Minecraft at least, and that my panic was only making it worse. I learnt my lesson. I grabbed a spare sword and one of the 3 sets of armor from the top floor of the house, but this time I forgot to bring food. I was hoping to find some in these loot containers in the cave, but even though the finds weren't bad, there was nothing of immediate use. I snuck past the monsters and descended with care to retrieve all that bread before seeking out my other grave, which had a whole army of monsters waiting for me. Here's how that went. We got there eventually, so I got back on with some mining for a bit. I was now primarily looking for iron for all the lanterns I want to make. I also found some openings to some deep darks and ancient cities, which I will be avoiding at all costs. I lugged all my materials back up to the surface on day 11, with some charming weather clearly giving me a very warm welcome, but before bringing them home, I wanted to grab the prismarite crystals in the colourful cave opening I got distracted from a couple of days ago. As a bonus, I also found some extra redstone related materials, and once I got back to the house to get everything smelted or organised, I could collect a whole bunch of tickets for my collection progress. 20 to be exact. Still not enough. I turned my attention to a different quest for now, which was to make a market. John isn't like other villagers and doesn't sleep, nor move from this very spot at all. The truest workaholic. You can buy various crops and materials from here, but you should know that anything required for the collections have an inflated price to encourage you to actually explore. You can even buy enchanting books from here, but I'll be honest, I don't think I use this much, if ever. My reward for placing that was some warp plates I didn't use, and a mailbox and postbox I didn't use either. The mailboxes, by the way, they're from the Mr. Crayfish's furniture mod, and if you played multiplayer, they're actually functional to send and receive items between each other. They are awesome. On day 12, I headed for the nearest village for a fix of loot to comfort me for my lack of miles tickets. I was mainly stealing the emeralds and iron ingots and leaving a lot of other stuff behind, but it was here that I opened my 100th looter chest. Determined to overcome my ticket roadblock, I went searching for more new items and found another little hut out here on its own. I helped myself to some cabbage, but I wasn't expecting the horrors waiting for me inside. What kind of monster would do this to the turtles? I removed the poor things from the counter and the walls, and by the looks of the turtle soup, I was far too late for some of them. Out of the back of the place, there were several who thankfully hadn't met their end yet, so I opened up all of the fences. Be free, little friends! I'll be having these carrots too. Without straying too far away, I didn't find many new items by the time I wanted to come home on day 13. I didn't get any new tickets at all this time, but the freedom of the turtles was worth so much more to me. I added some little extra touches to the office building whilst I can't still add the computers, then I was back to the ticket grind on day 14. It's time to turn to fishing. Not only are there fish collections, but some of the fish I'd need for seafood dishes as part of their own collections, and certain fish dishes will be sellable for tickets to NPCs. The lovely thing about fishing with the rod in Farming Crossing is that if you hold a bell in your offhand, it will ring when there's a bite. This is great for me. I miss fish pretty often without this louder audio cue. There is still a lot of waiting around though, which I'm not so much a fan of. So I dived into the water and took my sword to the fish. This felt much more efficient, and so that afternoon, I could afford to buy the Office Tech package with a single ticket left over. Unfortunately, the next big purchase would cost 64 tickets, but it's a shiny new storage system I was absolutely longing for. Expect it in my future. With our new computers for the office staff and a TV to entertain the guests, our first building is for the most part complete. I then had a browse through all the sellable food dishes and... oh no. Ignoring that particular one, I don't have most of the ingredients for these. A clear sign I need to begin work on a farm patch, and as usual, things went totally and 100% to plan. At least I fared better than this tree. I dug out the crop patch because I wanted it sunk into the ground a little, then for some reason, I sidelined that project in favour of a little more world exploring in a different direction. Finding an azalea tree planted in a cherry blossom village brought me joy. I love using these leaves to decorate with, and I got 2 flora collection notices for their saplings. A win-win. Because of the way that they were planted around the village, I don't think in this case that it means that there's a lush cave underneath. Looking at the map, one thing that was becoming apparent was the abundance of villages around the place, though in the interest of time, I'll mostly be ignoring the loot in these, as difficult as this was for me. Okay, fine, just one house, and it was worth it. I got a new crop. I used the waystone there to get to the village closer to home, so I could borrow a calcite block from one of the buildings for the collection. I then got back to my little farming project, using some of the pine slabs from one of the trees I just chopped down whilst I was out and about. I like the contrast that this adds, and this way, I'm less likely to accidentally trample my crops. I went with planting these in diagonal rows, though at the moment, I don't have a huge variety of seeds. I'll fill this patch out more as the days go on. My collection efforts from that most recent outing were decent enough to bring in another 20 tickets, with plenty more to find out there. But I'd like to alternate between exploration and building, so let's move on to building Jess the Beaver her very own house so I can actually invite her to the village. Since Jess provided that palette for the office, I'm assuming she'd want her house in a very similar style, but I made it much smaller, a lot like the Animal Crossing villager houses. Partway through this build, I realised I could put a crafting table on the stick, and even better, this one can go in a dedicated curio slot, so now I can just use my crafting table from a hotkey. So much easier. Just as I pillared up to build the roof, a backpack zombie came to disturb my peace. I underestimated its power and almost lost my life again, so I chose to take it out from a distance. A second backpack could come in handy, and these often come with loot inside, even if it's kinda lackluster. For the furnishing, I went with a light grey bed I stole from a village somewhere, and used a mixture of warped wood and jungle wood for the rest of it, a bit like the office, with a couple of cherry wood book cabinets for nightstands to add a bit of variation from the working building. A potted azalea tree filled out the empty corner, and I used the chipped mud to get a little woven rug together. All that's left to do now is to invite Jess to the village, and here she is. Not only is she the office manager here now, she also sells a bunch of useful items and upgrades for tickets, none of which I ended up buying. I'll be taking aim at Pamela the chef next, but I need to get set up for some cooking to show her that it's worth her while to move in. I don't actually have a kitchen yet, so I'm just going to use the space I have for these first steps. I was to start with a simple task, just chop a lemon. Well, it should have been simple. The next thing won't be quite so easy. Pamela sent me some ingredients and equipment to make some jello, and I wasn't feeling a multi-step recipe at that moment, so I just headed outside for day 19 to chop down some more wood to build with, and to remove a few more awkward land lumps. Once my brain had quietened enough, I set up a small kitchenette in the big house, though I kinda wish I picked a different sink, because this one doesn't act like a permanent water source like some of the others do. That aside, I needed to earn some more cooking equipment, so I chopped up some wheat dough into noodles, for which I got a free cooking pot, campfire and some seeds. Then with a small harvest from my crop patch, I could cook up some vegetable noodles. I'm only really cooking in the interest of the collection, and to get Pam to move in. I'm personally good with my infinitely regenerating ham. I continue to display my culinary prowess to expound my range of equipment to the big final boss. Toast! Nah, I'm just kidding. This was just to get me started so I could work on the rest of the cooking collection. Pam needs me to whip up 10 unique cooking dishes to convince her to move to the village, and she said that I might as well set up my own restaurant to make those dishes useful for earning more tickets. I did get around to making the apple jello in the cauldron too. That might be nice to serve at the restaurant. I don't have a build palette to go off for the restaurant yet, so I was feeling a nature walk first. To collect the nature, that is. Plus, I could really do with some bamboo for scaffolding for all the remaining builds. Any villages with waystones I crossed, I activated and renamed in case I needed to come back to them later for more materials. Most things I was only grabbing 1 or 2 of just for the collection. Some of them I can duplicate with tickets, and foliage I can often duplicate with bone meal. Crossing all the different biomes provided great opportunities to pocket some new fish too, and this shark didn't even want to eat me. How kind. With several solid days sprinting thousands of blocks and allowing myself into a few random buildings for loot, I'd accumulated enough plants and watched enough animals to hit some new milestones and complete a couple of sub-collections. I'm now at over 150 tickets. Yes, my inventory and backpack are a disaster, and I'm running out of room to store everything. Good thing I can now buy a shiny new storage system from the refined storage mod. I was grateful that I didn't have to figure out getting a power source set up, because Jess kindly included everything I need to store 1000 items. This thing is awesome. You can craft here too, but I know 1000 items won't be enough, so I spent another 64 tickets for an extra drive. Larger capacity drives, however, are gonna cost a lot more. I took the night to reorganize and chopped down a little more wood to start my day 25, finally pleased with having my home in order. Okay. I should probably start remembering to shut the door though. I ducked into the caves again to lift my spirits with some mining after that blunder. Whilst I can duplicate a lot of the materials with tickets, I'm still not great at earning them, so I thought it better to gather at least some things by myself. And if you've seen my Sunlit Valley videos, you'll know I've recently had some trouble finding granite in that world, so I couldn't pass up an opportunity like this. I grabbed some diorite too, and by the morning of day 26, I was ready to begin construction of the restaurant. Here's a quick look at the palette I've chosen to go with since I haven't been provided one by Pamela this time. So here we've got a couple of variants of granite, as well as some willow and some maple wood. It's more earthy than Jess's buildings, but I'm guessing we'll also see some other colours requested by other villagers later on. I don't tend to plan my builds in creative or anything, at least right now. It might become a habit I develop in the future, but whilst I'm still gaining my confidence in building, I'm mostly freehand experimenting and just trying to get quicker at it in general. It can mean I end up piecing everything together in a kind of wacky order, but unlike the saying, when it comes to building, it is about the destination for me and less so about the journey. Again, at least right now. Perhaps if you're someone who loves building in Minecraft, let me know your best tips in the comments. And for those who want to give it a go, maybe check out the comments, you might find some useful tips down there too. We could all learn something from each other. Before I could get too far with the interiors, I headed to the nearby forest to collect some oak wood, which is what the furniture will mostly be made out of. I collected some oak leaves as well for future decorations, but also because the way this apple tree grew up was looking a little sad from certain angles. Yes, this is a distraction from the current project, but I thought it could do with a bit of help. Some more volume if you will, but I did my best to cover as few of the fruiting sections as possible, and now I think that's looking quite a bit better. To get back to working on the restaurant interior, I replaced the wooden floor in the kitchen section with some checkered diorite tiles to separate the zone some more, then moved all the kitchen equipment supplied to me by Pam with the intention to do all my cooking here. The indecisive being that I am, it took me the whole of day 29 to get the restaurant kitchen set up. I had to go out for some clay overnight when I realised I forgot to place the sink, and ambush some squid so that I can dye the sink grey, which didn't really turn out grey to me. It more matches the dark oak countertops better. Of course, no restaurant is complete without some kind of seating, some candles on some of the tables, and a couple of potted plants. Despite the slippery weather, I didn't forget to add some tables outdoors, so people can dine out when things are looking a little bit brighter and drier. It took a few goes, but I managed to fit a handful of tables on the decking without it feeling too cramped. I think I'm happy with how my little restaurant turned out, and now all I have to do is welcome my first customer. Plot twist, they can never leave. I was given a regular villager spawn eggs for one of my rewards, because this is who we can sell our cooked dishes to, depending on what they order that is, but I fear I may lose business to the hostiles outside during the night times, so I was really hoping our new friend here might just attach themselves to one of the chairs. They did not. I guess the wood isn't comfy enough for Ricarda. I returned with a different, more plush seat in the morning. Ricarda needed a little encouragement to test out, but this seat was just right, and this is where they'll remain. Regular villagers don't move from this type of seat. Very handy. I use my new menu to take an order, and for a small order, I'll be paid 6 tickets for 4 dishes. Except taking a look at said order, I don't have the ingredients for a lot of these, so in terms of frequent profit for me, the menu method is a bust for now. That order is going in the bin. I was still in the midst of getting all my ingredients moved and organised anyway, and even found a few new seeds to plant amongst my storage. I harvested everything that was ready in my crop patch. I wanted to attempt cooking at least one of the sellable seafood dishes, not only for a quest, but some of these give a decent amount of tickets for a single dish. I don't have the stuff for some of the pricier meals, but I could throw together some fish chorba for 5 tickets a pop. All you have to do is right click the villager twice with the dish, they don't even have to order it, and you get your payment. So much easier. I also got some extra for completing my first one. My first test run in the kitchen made me realise I was missing a useful resource, a cow in a jar for milk. If you've used the Cooking for Blockheads mod before, you might already be familiar with a cow in a jar and how to make them, but the farming crossing method is far less, well, violent. Instead, we just surround some seeds with a bucket of milk and a crafting table, and now when I go to place this in my restaurant, not there, when I place this in my kitchen, it will begin to slowly fill up with milk over time, and I can take buckets of milk right from the jar. I spent a lot of day 33 cooking up a seafood storm to get my hands on as many mouse tickets as I could. That was until I browsed the cooking collection and realised that I'm going to eventually need a range of animal products, so I better get an animal farm together.
Yoink!
Expanding my crop rows ended off my day 34, which preceded a whole night of trying to cook new dishes. I hadn't done very many when I realised I could do with a different oven to cook the meats. The Mr. Crayfish one doesn't seem to do this, and by the following night, I'd finally surpassed the 10 unique dishes achievement because I don't think the sellable seafood dishes count. Yes, I really was just that slow at cooking. But the important part was that I managed to convince Pam that the culinary scene here is worth travelling for, so she's tasked me with building a travel food stand. I'm going to be so honest and let you know now that I forgot this was actually her request, so I'm just going to use this palette to build her a house instead. To be fair, I'm sure she'd be delighted to know that she already has a whole restaurant waiting for her. I did pay attention to the fact that she doesn't just like cooking, she likes gardening too, so I took the liberty of adding a greenhouse extension onto her home. And of course she has to have her very own kitchen, even if I might have forgotten to include an oven. I swapped out the blocks above the doors to stairs to add a little bit more depth from the outside, and since this chipped variant of quartz can't be made into stairs the normal way, the framed blocks mod came to the rescue. I just made a couple of stair frames, and there we have some quartz flat brick stairs. When adding plants to the greenhouse, I didn't want it to look like an indoor farm, so I planted things a little bit more randomly, with some pots also on the ground, as well as leaving a couple of spaces open as if they've just been harvested. And you know what? I'm pretty proud of this little room. I wasn't quite so proud of the rest of the interior though, so whilst pondering some options of what else I could add, I allowed myself some fresh air and placed some leaves as a bush to one of the outside corners. To add a little more to the main area in Pam's house, I added some extra furniture in the mauve wood to match the plant benches in the greenhouse section, as well as some little kitchen decor pieces from the MOA mod set. At this point, I was satisfied enough to at least invite Pamela to the village. Our gardener chef friend sells a variety of cooking ingredients pretty inexpensively, but these things I'm happy to make or obtain myself, so I never bought anything here. With Pam now settling in, I was ready to do and explore again. I might have mentioned this earlier, but if I didn't, I was enjoying the idea of alternating some building with tracking down some new items for the various collections we have to complete. I used a nature's compass to point me to the nearest mangrove swamp and passed through a blackwood tiger on my travels, which have these mushroom trees with shroom lights on them, and a nice lighting block option was something I was missing. They don't chop down like other trees though, so I used my hoe to gather the blocks. I did not leave this biome without grabbing some of each resource it had to offer, and it wasn't long before the darkness of this forest began to catch up with me, so I bounced, as light as a frog apparently. As I passed through some more forested areas, I couldn't help having a closer look at this larger mushroom. I just wanted to look at it, but as I got closer, I received the Fungal Detective achievement. Without looking at its description, I wouldn't have guessed that there's a house in there, with treasure might I add. To be fair, I didn't see that the side had a window before I broke in, and seeing a window would have made it more obvious. It was a shame I didn't have a silk touch pickaxe. I would have loved to take this ender chest with me, and sure I can pick it up with a carry-on mod, but it's just so much slower to get around this way, and not practical for long distance travel. As for the loot chests, there wasn't much inside them worth the inventory space really. I don't know why I took this lodestone either. I never used them. I think it was just because I don't have one in this world, and I can't fully subdue my inner loot goblin. Continuing with a night of running and swimming, and loot distractions, because I am still me, I reached the mangrove swamp the morning of day 41. A propagule on the ground added to my collection progress, and I chopped down just one of the trees to take some of the wood so I can duplicate it with tickets later if I need to. Now for the vanilla sapling collection, I just have the acacia and jungle saplings to go. Luckily, I could tackle one of those pretty easily with a savanna just a couple of hundred blocks away. I haven't passed through these much, if at all, so there was a new wildlife to stare down. Moving on to new terrain, I found a little village in the redwoods I allowed myself to loot. It was worth it for the extra metals and even some diamonds, but just beyond that was a jungle for me to spend my last sliver of axe durability on one of its trees, and there is my last vanilla sapling. I slept the night away on a perfectly bed-sized mound of sand in the water. Then on day 42, I checked my map for the nearest unvisited village in the hopes I might be able to find a new waystone there. Turns out that mushroom house we found earlier wasn't enough. This is a whole mushroom village. I never found a waystone here, but I did find some beet seeds. I found plenty of the crop, but none of the seeds up till now. I wasn't exactly in a rush to go home, so I decided to carry on my exploration. I made friends with this boat fisher in the night. I needed to do something a bit less physically tiring whilst remaining productive, so I kindly asked if I could hang out on their boat to fish for a while, because it's a lot more sturdy than mine. Tough luck. I stole from them and proceeded to fish there anyway. Watching the sunrise into day 43 was quite lovely. My fish collection unfortunately hadn't really grown, and more specifically, I was hoping to catch a tuna for a quest, which I did not find even staying out there the whole day. I even tried picking another spot for the nighttime and using my own boat. I did get one new swamp fish of some sort, then pulling another all-nighter fishing, I finally reeled in the tuna as a new day dawned. My stubbornness paid off, which also completed the saltwater collection, and it was my 20th unique fish. This was a big catch in many respects. You might have spotted the village at the water's edge. I made my way over there shortly after to see if I could find a village waystone, but this one didn't have one either, so it was at this point that I decided to use one of my own on the beach in case I want to come back here for some ocean fishing. We are pretty far away from the nearest activated waystone. Still not going home yet. I hopped back on the boat and found a lighthouse. That had some fun new things for me to find, and I couldn't be more grateful for all the bundles I got from the initial quest. Without them, I would have had to go home to drop stuff off several times, so now I can travel and loot uninterrupted for longer. It was then onwards to some much drier lands. I mean a literal desert, with some cactus which is apparently a food, and some other new plants. I spent as little time as possible in the desert heat, but escaping to greener pastures, I was not expecting it to be cold enough to see a goat. I had to get a good look at it for the animal watching collection, but I bolted straight over to it and smacked it with my axe. Poor thing. I don't think I even meant to do that. It's animal watching, not animal chopping. I vacated the area so it could recover without me, and found the whole mini collection of magnolia flowers to knock that one out in one go. I next set my sights on finding a dark oak forest to see if I could find its shrub there. Annoyingly, it's back in the other direction past the mushroom village. It turned out I made a mistake when I got to the dark oak forest, because it was not in fact the dark oak shrub I was missing, it was the jungle birch and spruce ones. There was an old growth birch forest nearby, but I couldn't see any shrubs anywhere. Searching for them in JEI, I was relieved to find it had a very easy crafting recipe. Just 2 of the sapling turn it into a shrub, and vice versa. This works for any sapling that has a shrub variant in this mod pack. That meant I could just chop down a birch tree for some more saplings. I'll make the shrub when I get home. I was loosely heading in that direction now anyway, checking out any landmarks like towers and villages as I passed them, and we do have to stop, take a breather, and admire the view once in a while. I continued seeking out new plants and materials I might have missed earlier, even if I was beginning to struggle through cramming everything into my backpack, and I ended up adding a random waystone by a forest that had spruce trees in it because I couldn't remember having come across those very much. I used that one to get me closer to home, which was near my next target biome, the frozen tundra. This biome has a new type of flower I was hunting for, the snowbell. It can come in a whole range of colours, but I was struggling to find any that weren't white. Turns out that unlike most of the other flowers, this one can and should be dyed to get the rest of the colours I needed, so I collected more to do that at a later date. A quick looting of a nearby snowy village mainly for their frog lights, and I was ready to head home to put away all the new stuff I gathered. There was a lot of it, so that process took much of the night, and with that, I completed several of the collections and reached some new milestones, enough for my rewards to total over 100 tickets. The tuna alone earned me a phone call from Sam the Osprey, sushi chef by day and fisherman by night. He decided I could now be trusted with some better fishing gear. He gave me a little sushi making lesson over the phone, teaching me how and where to slice the tuna into its most popular cuts. I guess I'm just a natural. I got them all first time with a single swing of my knife. Each of those larger cuts can now be chopped into smaller pieces for sashimi. I had to head to the restaurant kitchen for the next part. I needed to cook up some rice to make nigiri. Assembling all my nigiri into platters meant I had another sellable seafood dish in my arsenal, and these are worth a whopping 16 tickets each. I did not hesitate to sell at least one of these. For making my first one, I became the proud owner of a golden fishing hook, which increases luck, and Sam was impressed enough to ask me to build a pop-up sushi restaurant so he can visit. Of course, we know that he won't be leaving once he gets here, so the sushi restaurant will also be a permanent fixture. I suppose I could have just expanded the existing restaurant, but where's the fun in that? I've not worked with the colours or materials in this palette very much, and certainly not in this combination, so this is going to be a challenge. I wasn't quite ready for said challenge yet, so I took a look at Sam's other quest, which was to make some fried catfish with cheesy grits. I already had a catfish in the fridge, so it didn't take long for me to knock out this new recipe. The tickets I got as a reward went towards the delivery fee for the sushi restaurant materials, and selling off the catfish dish more than made back the rest. Let's get started on our next build. Just kidding, that's too many monsters, we'll get some sleep first. For my sushi restaurant, I wanted it a little closer to the water where the fish would be caught, but I didn't want it to be all the way at the bottom of the hill because most people really don't want to climb a mountain after a meal. Instead, I'm going to flatten off a small section of this cliffside and have it up here, plus seeing the lake view is really cool. It took a little bit of time to get the terrain how I wanted it, then I added a wooden path to allow people to get down this part of the hill safely before starting on the actual restaurant build. I don't exactly know what happened to the footage of when I built the roof, but here's how our sushi restaurant is looking. I'm loving the location for it, and I think the village is really starting to come together. I then wanted to add some lighting to the walkway using some fences, shroom light, and barred maple trapdoors from the chip mod, and then covered over that cave entrance just in front of the building, which I think looks significantly better, and more stable. Now for the interior. I wanted to incorporate more of the crimson wood, so I did that with the counters. The kitchen area has its own offshoot a bit like the first restaurant, but this time, I wanted a shelving rack of sorts along the back wall in the hopes of displaying some of the fish. I gotta have a cooking pot down here as well for the rice, as well as a chopping board to slice all that fish. I used more crimson wood for the tables too, and for the seating, I went with some oak benches because it reminds me of some of the Japanese or sushi restaurants I've been to. Then for the finishing touch, I used a lectern and a sandstone block to work a bit like a hostess counter situation. What do we think? I'd certainly eat here. I had a loose idea of what I wanted to do with Sam's house, but for some reason, I procrastinated building that one, so he'll be living with Pamela for the time being, plus they can bond over their love for cooking. Inviting him to the village, I didn't even give him a chance to look around before checking out what's for sale, and here we can find a variety of fishing goodies and sushi dishes. Again, I didn't end up ever spending my tickets here. I'm honestly mainly using them for getting more materials, but it was good to browse to show you what's on offer. We now have 3 of our 5 villages in town, but to get more, I need to pay 100 tickets for some sort of village capacity permit. Sounds like a scam if you ask me, but there wasn't much I could do to get around it, so I bought it to find out what's next. You don't need to do anything with the permit besides own it. I could now work towards building either a blacksmith building for Ren the woodpecker, or a hat shop for Benina the shrew. Having a look at the 2 build palettes, I had a landslide preference for Benina's because Ren's isn't very me, so I'm saving the best one till last. You know how I do now though? We've only just built something, so after displaying my village capacity permit in the office, I skipped town for a while for some nature exploration. I don't know what it is, but there's something about heading out in a boat at night that's just really peaceful. Oh my goodness, that's so many creepers. Nope, I hate the dark. I carried on sprinting through the snow and viewed a polar bear up close as my last snowy animal, then slapped my sleeping bag down on the ice to get a couple of hours kip before my next little mission to hunt down a lush cave. I used the nature's compass to bring me to the general area, and headed to the nearest cave opening to give me a head start for my descent underground. Once I hit a dead end, I just had to dig and hope for the best that I'd eventually hit said lush cave, and that it might be big enough for me to spot an axolotl, as well as find a spore blossom for the flora collection. Honestly, I was digging for most of this day, and I'm glad I took a replay doing this, because it's hilarious looking back how surrounded I was by lush caves without actually finding an opening for a long time. Don't be me. Pick one direction and stick with it. Where am I going? The second big chunk of clay that I hit led me right eventually. I didn't miss out on collecting any new material blocks for the collection, as well as any diamonds I found too. And checking out this little loot camp, I found a new artifact, the magic mirror, just like in Terraria. This one isn't quite as good though. It'll only take me to my spawn point if it's within 634 blocks, so not amazing for all this long haul travel I'm involved in. I used my minimap to try and lead me towards an axolotl to observe by holding down the tab key, but it doesn't help much if it's above or below you in height, so this was a more difficult search than I anticipated. It wasn't until the morning of day 58 that I found some. I decided to pick up a couple in a bucket in case I want them for something at home, and I wanted the cutest predator achievement. I did also eventually find that spore blossom, the last piece for the vanilla flora collection. Since I love using the lush caves materials, I popped down a mossy waystone in this cave in case I'd like to revisit it later, and teleported home to work on the entire snowbell collection, which requires me to dye one in each colour. I couldn't find my cocoa for the brown dye though. I was sure I collected some. Oh well, nothing a quick trip back to the jungle can't fix. It was really satisfying dyeing all these beautiful flowers in one go, until I had the whole rainbow of snowbells in my inventory. That's 21 tickets for that collection alone. Whilst I was in a crafty mood, I also got some new shrubs made up for the flora collections. Then it was on with my next bit of building, except it's not the blacksmith shop. I'm productively procrastinating here, but the village was in dire need of some sort of pathways. A path is a great way to tie everything together and really bring the village to life, rather than it just being several buildings close to each other. I started by digging in some path blocks for the main component and to mark the whole thing out, then went back around after and swapped out some of the grass and path blocks for moss, coarse dirt and packed mud to add some texture. We're not quite finished yet though. I grew some azalea trees to gather a lot more leaves to save my tickets, with some locals trying to help me. Thank you creeper buddy, but I can chop these trees myself. We don't need to blow them up. Here's a quick look at how the path's looking before we add some more details, and using those leaves, along with some cobble and mossy stone walls, plus some lanterns and some andesite stone paths, I added little sections of lighting, foliage and rocks. Being able to see this come together, especially at night, it really helped make the village look a lot less gloomy. A couple of zombies even came to watch me at work, but when they realised how much lighting I was adding around the place, one of them tried to stop me. Not that it worked. I got my revenge by adding even more lighting, starting with under the water sources in the crop patch, which I also covered with trapdoors. I'm still getting used to the fact that we can waterlog certain blocks now, so I can cover the water sources and have them flush with the ground. Then because the tilled farmland is just shorter than a full block height, I can sneak in some more shroom lights underneath the slabs. Same with the path blocks. I also love placing them under bushes. Monsters be gone. The final additions were some blue and pink magnolia shrubs for a little extra pop of colour. As a reminder, here's how the path looks before I added the extra touches, and here's how it's looking after. I love doing paths to be honest. I find them really therapeutic, and the difference that they make is pretty rewarding. My landscaping project is now complete, so it's time for the next exploration mission. I was after finding an underground biome called an ancient delta. Lucky for me, I found this cool mushroom mineshaft entrance pretty close to said biome according to my compass. There was a spawner down there I had to make safe first, so I could get my hands on the plants, but to my disbelief, none of these added to any collections. I was soon cheered up by finding a minecart chest which apparently completed my looter collection. I've now looted every type of looter chest. I don't get tickets for that one, but let's be honest, you can't put a price on it anyway. Plus the chest contained a superstitious hat for an extra level of looting to killed enemies. What a dream. I still had quite a few uncharted biomes on my list, all of which were several thousand blocks away. Thank goodness for my boat, my ham, and my trusty running shoes. I came across a very well lit village on the shoreline that night, or at least this path is well lit. This is so many lanterns. I don't think they need this many lanterns. I could do with some more lanterns, so I stole some. Aside from the abundant decor freebies, this village was really cool. It was comprised of a load of giant tents. I'd never seen one of those in modern Minecraft before. Anyway, I had to keep moving and crossed a savannah as the sun rose where I spotted a lion. That was my last savannah animal for that collection. It was a very quick spotting though. I didn't fancy becoming breakfast. Plus there was some more new flora just up ahead, including some that I was hunting down the steppe for. I never had anywhere to use it, but the Socotra wood looked awesome. My nature hike was proving fruitful, both above ground and below it, so returning home on day 69, I could collect a few more tickets. Sadly, I found out that there were a couple of items that I could only find in the nether without buying them for tickets. I have been avoiding going over there. It's too hot and it's scary, and clearly I'm putting it off longer by knocking out this wood with the obsidian instead of an axe. I never planned a place for another portal that was just going to live next to the stairs in the big house. I got the warmest of welcomes, literally, then just picked a direction and ran. Oh my god. I just fell so far. Oh my heart. I forgot I had a totem on me that saved my butt. Oh. That totem came from a loot chest. Being a loot goblin really paid off this time. I made my way back up and traversed this hellhole with a lot more care, quickly finding the mushroom I was looking for so I could take my leave. That's the bioshroom collection complete. That far tumble really knocked me back into building mode, but let's tackle that blacksmith shop for Ren the woodpecker. This one's gonna be interesting. I'm gonna be upfront right now and let you know that I did not find a way to incorporate the nether wart. I wanted to place this one a little bit more separate to the buildings tourists might visit, so I'm putting it just beyond Pam and Sam's house once I get these monsters out of the way. The area needed a bit of land prep first, so I couldn't get started on the actual building till nightfall. With the walls, I made a lot of use of the chipped mod for variants of blackstone and sandstone. Even though I also use sandstone for the walls of the sushi restaurant, I feel like using the black pillars instead of crimson gives this one a whole different look. I did enjoy doing a pattern floor in a couple of the other buildings, so I tried a different one in here too with the blackstone because I felt like a darker floor would suit a workshop vibe. Blacksmithing means dealing with a lot of hot metal, so to stop Ren from overheating, I built a yard situation that will house the blast furnaces and an anvil for the metalwork. I lined under the andesite walls with some cobbled purple blocks to tie it in with the roof, which I also built with the purple blocks. The roof was kind of a struggle though. I had a really hard time getting the shape to look right with the entryway jutting out, so I'm gonna spare you from seeing me break it down and rebuild it several times. Once I got the furnaces built in with its own chimney situation, I roofed over the yard in campfires, extinguished of course. The inside of this building isn't going to have a living area. Ren will have a separate house. I did almost forget to add still burning campfires for the furnace chimneys, but I placed them down with some mauve trapdoors surrounding them because again, it's kind of similar in colour to the purple. Here's how we're looking from the outside. This building kinda looks like it belongs in the end or something, which, spoiler alert, or you might have guessed it, I will not be visiting there. The decor isn't quite done yet. I used the MOA mods to get a little more details together, though I did get a little bit distracted when I saw I could make a custom scarecrow, but I didn't have any pumpkins for the head, so I made a special trip out to one of the villages to grab some. See, I've literally never picked one up. There are a good variety of scarecrow heads we can pick, but I went with the slime one, jack-o'-lantern edition. That's going in place of one of the blueberry bushes. I think the zombie's mad that they weren't picked for the job. Isn't this scarecrow just precious? I couldn't help making this apron and chef hat for Pam's house. Then it was back to the blacksmith's. I added some paint and piles of lumber because I think Ren is also a carpenter and a builder. A hammer and a chisel went on the anvil, but it was still kind of empty inside and missing something. I kid you not, I spent the entire night scouring JEI for all the options. I think I was looking for like a pile of blueprints or something to use like construction plans, but I couldn't find any, so here's what I went with. I added some storage cabinets, still included a desk and a chair for sketching up plans, or maybe painting them in this case. The art supplies are just adorable, and then I added some books where all the diagrams and concept art would be kept. With that, I could call Ren's workshop complete. My last decor piece of the day was actually a non-edible sushi platter for the sushi restaurant. I promise you, Ren will be getting his own house, but for now, he'll be staying with Jess so I can invite him to the village. Here's our new woodpecker friend, a bird of many words. You need to be pretty ticket rich to shop at Ren's store. Those stacked looking tickets there? Each one is worth 100 tickets, so like a nether star will cost 1,000. Once again, I will not be buying stuff here, I just wanted to show you what's for sale, if you're willing to give this pack a go for yourself. Day 77 was for joining up the path over to the workshop, and when I went to get the magnolia shrubs, I found I had a bunch of cute little bioluminescent flowers called asters, and I wanted to add them to the path around the village. Then on day 78, I wanted to add some more new crops to the patch, but I had to swap out a few of the dirt for sand to allow pineapples to grow. I also had some salmon berries to plant, then filled the remaining gaps with some other existing crops and some sweetberry bushes. there's a couple more projects tied up, so I prepared for my next exploration and gathering quest. I was just a few minerals shy of completing that entire category. I hadn't seen a block called Scorchia before. Turns out it's sadly another one that lives in the nether. This time, I'm going in a bit better geared with a diamond sword and a full set of diamond armor. I made my reluctant delving into the nether a little bit more worthwhile by grabbing some glowstone. I wasn't entirely sure where to find this Scorchia block, other than the fact that it's probably next to or surrounded by netherrack, which really narrows it down. I mean, with the extra nether biomes, it actually kinda does narrow it down a little bit. Just when I was about to give up, I found some as I was turning back towards the portal. The last create mineral block. Get me out of here, please. Just one more mineral sub-collection to go. Seems I missed some stuff in the Prismarite cave in the earlier days. There are some of the redstone blocks and stuff here too, but not all of the ones I needed, so I asked my compass to lead me to an actual redstone cave which wasn't too far away. I was hoping we could just shear these tiny redstone buds. You can't, by the way, but I could just craft them anyway. Then with the bigger buds, you can collect them with shears. I had to track down another ancient delta to grab some argolite, and the last two minerals are craftable, so I'll handle them later. I had loads to get across the other categories, and with just 20% of my time left, I had my doubts by this point that I'd actually be able to find every single item, so I used my compass and my numerous waystones to plan an adventure to the nearest fen biome. I forgot to bring an axe with me, so I used a mirror to chop down a tree. It's magic preventing it from smashing, and I didn't even need that sapling or its shrub. It felt like I went off course and wasted my time for a minute until I found a nearby clover plains with a couple of colours of lupine I was missing. I made it to the fen eventually and threw together a stone axe because this dead tree was not the only one I was planning to chop on this expedition. My next destination will be in Alpha Grove. That's not a mistake. I do in fact have 7,500 blocks to travel, and there was plenty of new stuff for the taking along the way. So shocked, I was speechless. I looked down at the ground in shame for not checking my surroundings. I needed to get straight back out there to carry on, but I don't have enough levels to travel by waystone to the location I need, so I zipped into the nether to get some XP from mining quartz, but the nether had other plans. I ran for the nearest water ball to extinguish myself, but the burning stopped at one single heart. The zombie just outside the house would have taken me out again if it wasn't for my newly sharpened reflexes. That still wasn't enough to get me to the tower near the desert, so back into the nether I went without almost being cooked alive this time, so I can make it back to my grave on day 82. Look at it floating above the creeper hole, almost mocking me. Let's try that again, hopefully without any further dying. I finally made it to the Alpha Grove after a long journey. First thing I did was set up a waystone here so I don't have to do that again. The Alpha Grove is a rare biome which gives a nod to old school Minecraft with the nostalgic look of the trees and the flowers. Here I need to collect an alpha dandelion, an alpha sapling from the alpha oak tree, and an alpha rose. The loot? That's just for me. For the mythic flower collection, I now need to find a hibiscus and a wilted trillium. I knew where I could find some alive trilliums. I got one of those towards the beginning of this 100 days. You can't seem to craft the wilted ones or anything, so I attempted to go with instinct and headed for some arid biomes. Unfortunately, I had no luck finding it. I didn't want to spend too long on that one, so I carried on to my next faraway stop, an ashen woodland. In a stroke of better luck, I happened upon a tropical region along the way with the hibiscus I was missing, and on its southwest shore it had a tiny mushroom biome I might come back to at a later date. I leapt off the edge of the boat the second I saw a dolphin so I could complete the general water animal spotting collection, because despite the sheer amount of boat travel, this really was my first time seeing one. Like I thought there might have been a bug or something stopping them from spawning up until this night. That was near the ominous looking ashen woodland I was hoping to find. This felt a little bit like a part of the nether leaked into the overworld, so it wasn't the best night's sleep out there, but I managed to get a hold of the saplings of one of its trees, and the ashen shrub I need. I put the waystone there just in case I need to return, but didn't spend longer there than I needed to in this scorch zone, warping off to a cooler forest to chop a larch tree for the last sapling in this collection. To get another one polished off, I returned home to craft up a few shrubs. That's both the Mizik saplings and shrubs now complete. I had one more last-ditch attempt to see if I could find any information at all about the wilting trillium. I even braved the ashen woodland again, but nope, not here. And I checked the arid biomes one last time for the whole of day 86 and some of day 87 without success. I ended up giving up, so if any of you happen to know where I can find this darn flower, could you please let me know in the comments? At least I knew I had another win waiting for me at home. Crafting up some blackstone clusters and some mossy stone, I'd officially gathered the missing pieces to the entire mineral collection. I got that beautiful celebratory achievement jingle, and our very own certificate. That's getting proudly displayed in the office. On day 88, I was all explored out and ready for my next build. This time I picked Ren's house, which is going to be in a very similar style to the workshop which you saw me build. So here's a little before with it marked out, followed by a good couple of in-game days spent building and decorating, and voila! Here's how the house turned out. Like I said, it's similar, but it doesn't need a blacksmith yard. After seeing it like this, I realised I forgot to add quite literally anything to the exterior, so I fixed that issue before I got to work joining Ren's house to the rest of the paths. I said it before and I'll say it again. The path just adds so much in my opinion. Ren's area looks so much cuter now. Getting struck by lightning wasn't cute, but I'm pleased with how the village is coming along. I actually had a quest for Ren. Not only does he sell some interesting stuff, he also buys excess materials. If you bring him 100 of a duplicatable material, he'll give you a construction ticket in exchange. I got an extra one for free for my first trade. You can then use these a bit like the Mars tickets to duplicate materials. The difference is, you get 100 of the material instead of 50, and the construction tickets can only be used for materials. It's great if you have masses of certain resources but are lacking in others. Given that we're less than 10 days away from the end of this video, I didn't head out for a nature walk after that last project. I still have to build Benina's hat shop and invite her to the village, plus the palette for this one excited me. That was my plan for day 92, and I was not going to let this creeping creeper stop me. The way it pretended it wasn't about to do anything, did you see that? Anyway, let's get building. For this one, I went with a little market stall outside joined to what will be Benina's tailoring studio, and her home. It was giving pretty and pink vibes, and I'm here for it. There wasn't too much path to add to join it to the rest of the village, and now all that's left to do is add some hats to the hat stands. To do that, I'm gonna need to invite Benina, who is absolutely freaking adorable. Before she could take a look at her new home, I wanted to check out her stock. I didn't realise that the hats for sale here would have potentially useful effects. I'd have loved the chopping hat and the mining hat for their awesome buffs, but these are amongst the many I had no hope of affording. The ender helmet I could buy though. That one looks cool, and the bunny ears were just for the stand. Trying out the ender helmet, you need to right click holding the helmet to set a position to teleport to, then if you use an ender pearl whilst wearing the hat, it will take you to that point instead. I wish it told me that ender pearls would be required to make use of this hat though before I bought it. I won't be getting any of those, so it's going on the stand with the others. All of my villagers have now safely arrived in town, but I still have multiple collections to work on and a handful of days left. Believe it or not, I felt I had the most hope with the fish, so I made sure I had a diamond fishing rod assembled with some upgrades, used some spare foliage to accumulate a supply of worms for bait, and teleported to the Alpha Grove to begin my voyage to that little mushroom fields biome. I was unsure that I could catch the fish I needed with the area being so small, but I was still hopeful that I might reel in the red and the brown shroomer. My hopes had not pulled through by the morning of day 96, so I moved on to a new target for now, because I couldn't bear the thought of being stuck here for my remaining days. Sadly, after a whole 3 days of fishing with both my rod and my sword, spanning thousands of blocks across multiple biomes, I did not discover a single new fish. I was determined not to come back empty-handed though, and through sheer perseverance and, well, stubbornness, I'd caught myself a Pacific halibut which completed the Arctic fish collection. Thank goodness, we got one! I made my way back to the village towards the end of day 98 in the hopes that the cooking collections would prove more fruitful. I was holed up in the kitchen right up till day 100 as you saw. I wiped out 8 entire sub-collections, but I couldn't get them all, having not even found several of the fruits I'd need. I had to wrap up that task to handle the sugarcane and rice farm before this final day comes to an end, because this square was just set up as an emergency and I completely forgot to fix it till today. I swapped it for 2 rows instead to at least look a little bit more intentional. And speaking of forgotten projects, we're now at the end of this 100 days and I kinda forgot to build Sam his own house. But you know what? Sam and Pam are happy in sharing a home and sharing their loves of cooking. Kinda perfect. If we ignore that oversight, and perhaps brush over the fact that I didn't achieve my goal of completing every single collection in this 100 days, we did still collect every mineral, and I'm proud of my humble little farming crossing village. I'm still learning when it comes to building in Minecraft, but the materials being supplied by the villagers helped me gain some confidence a little. Hit that like button if you enjoyed coming along with me for this journey, and let me know in the comments, if you were a villager in Farming Crossing, what would your profession be, and what would your house look like? Thank you so much to my channel members, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!